The NovaCare complex was busy this week as the New England Patriots came to town. 2 days of joint practices, which will all be put to the test tonight. This is our last opportunity to see the Eagles at home for the preseason, with a lot at stake for the guys fighting for a spot on the 53-man roster. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. I'm Gabriella DiGiovanni here with Fran Duffy. Preseason game number 2. How are we feeling?
I'm excited. And it's weird because at halftime of this game, we're going to be halfway through the preseason. It got here so fast, we're almost through it as the regular season gets closer and closer.
We just keep rolling. We're going to roll right on over to Lincoln Financial Field to check out some live warm-ups presented by PA Lottery. All right, Miles Sanders getting ready to go. Those running backs were put to the test this week. Fran, 2 days against the Patriots. What did we learn about the Eagles in those 2 days?
I think it was a really competitive 2 days of practice against a team that is battle-tested and well-coached. We know that the prestige that surrounds Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, right? But I thought that the Eagles competed really well, especially in the lines of scrimmage. You know, if you look at the offensive line and defensive line, I thought the Eagles fared really, really well. The one-on-one sessions were really spirited, and that's what I love most about these joint practices is that you're getting those live-ish reps, because you're getting against an opponent, not the guy that you see every single day, but they're not tackling to the ground. And so it's a really kind of best of both worlds scenario.
You could say spirited. You could also say chippy, maybe.
Yep.
A little talking out there, but that's good. That's what these players need. You know, knock the rust off. They're not just playing their own guys anymore. And I think it's great for the coaching staff because they get to learn a lot about these players and who they have. You know, the other day we knocked it down to 85 on the roster. Tuesday we'll go down to 80, and then that following Tuesday, August 31st, we'll have our 53-man roster. So there's a lot at stake. These joint practices are a way to learn a lot about these players. And now tonight, we're going to get even a better look to see what's out there.
And to the other big thing, there's two sides of the competitive advantage here, right? And it's something Nick Sirianni talked about today, or this week rather, during a press conference, is that during these joint practices, you've got not just the idea of, look, we're putting this on film for just the Patriots to see. Not all 32 teams get the film of these practices, but then the other side of it is not just to protect the players, but also to protect your scheme. And the Eagles have an advantage in that no one really knows what this offense looks like. No one really knows what this defense is going to look like. And so you get to have those competitive reps in a controlled environment. Because remember, preseason, it's all about trying to get a sense of your starters. Let's try and get them a handful of third down reps, some red zone work, a 2-minute drill, right? Well, in a practice session, you can control that, and you could say, hey, we're going to throw out Jalen Hurts and Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith. We're going to say we want a whole period just on red zone. In a preseason, you might only get a handful of those reps over 3 games, and so it's really good to be able to get those kind of competitive reps over the course of a two-day session against the Patriots.
We saw quarterback Jalen Hurts warming up. There's Joe Flacco. Hurts he got some more eyes on him in practice this week when you have media from New England coming down to check things out. There was a lot written, a lot of buzz around the quarterback here in Philadelphia. Of course, we're learning more and more about Jalen Hurts as the weeks go on, and we're going to learn, I don't know how much we'll learn tonight, how many reps they're going to give him. Nick Sirianni didn't really commit to too much of how much we'll see of him. But I think over the past few weeks, as he has really grown in terms of his confidence, as he's worked harder and longer with this coaching staff, and they're trying to figure out the best way to use him. You know, Steichen said this week that we're not going to change who he is, right? Because there's so many questions swirling about his run game. He runs. And people want to know more about his arm. And Steichen said we're not going to change who he is. We're just working to have both strengths working in unison. And so that'll be interesting to see if he does get out there for a few series, if he's using his arm a lot.
I think that's a really big point, and it's something that we'll continue to watch for, not just tonight, but moving through the rest of the summer in that build-up to week 1. And it's been fun, too, getting another set of media's eyes on this team, right? Because, you know, we've read a lot of the coverage around the Eagles over the last couple of weeks, but when you get the New England Patriots beat writers, all those journalists come in, well, what do they see from this team? And there were, honestly, with both days, a lot of people said that guy right there on your screen, number 1, was the best quarterback on the field, regardless of which jersey he was wearing. So I think that bodes well for the development of Jalen Hurts and where he's at. He continues to get better practice after practice after practice, which I think is a really good sign.
Speaking of development, that wide receiver room, we're continuing to see mature and some guys make their way to the top of that group. Devontae Smith was asked who the leader of that group is, and he looked at the media and he said everybody. And when other players are asked who's kind of really making themselves a leader, they say that whole group, they're full of leaders. And I think that's a great thing to hear for the wide receiver core, because that's been a group that there's been a lot of uncertainty around. And the past few weeks especially, and you see those viral videos on Twitter of Jalen Reagor and some of the catches he's made, they're really starting to put the pieces together. And when you have a bunch of leaders and guys that believe in each other, they're watching a lot of film together, they're communicating, they're building relationships off the field, we're starting to see it come together. Jalen Mills, heard of him? Yeah. He's back in town with the Patriots. He even commented after practice one day on the maturation of those wide receivers. And so he's noticing, and the people around here, the Nova Care Complex, are also taking notice as well. Yeah,
and I love hearing from players on any roster talk about the guys that they face every single day in practice. So, when Jalen Mills was here, he was a great quote for reporters to go up and say, hey, what do you think of the young receivers you're seeing every single day? So for him to come back a year later and say, hey, we're seeing improvement from Jalen Reagor, we're seeing improvement from Quez Watkins and all the other receivers on this depth chart, I think, again, that speaks to the development. And you're out there at practice every single day, Ella. So you see how involved these coaches are with coaching these players hard every single day between reps. I was down there in the red zone the other day. They were doing routes on air, wide receivers, just catching passes from quarterbacks. Nothing crazy. Between every single rep, Nick Sirianni was grabbing whoever the receiver was that just went and gave him some kind of coaching point on the route, some kind of coaching point with how to hold his hands at the catch point, and was so emphatic on trying to explain the whys behind it. It wasn't just, hey, you did this wrong, do it right next time. It was, hey, do this right because what you do here is going to help you create separation, and then you're going to see that show up in the game. And I just think that is so awesome to be able to see that the relationships these coaches are forming with these players on the field.
I think it's been great, too, to see the confidence building, obviously as individuals, as a group, but also of that offense and of the team. A lot of players are very confident in the work that the wide receivers are putting in through camp. Another group starting to kind of get the ball rolling here is the offensive line. Yes. Obviously, the big question mark there was health. Keeping the 5 guys up front healthy. It was a tough thing that they went through last year, but they're starting to come back. There's one celebrating a big birthday today, I believe, Brandon Brooks. That's right. There's Jason Kelsey, big center. What do you think of the offense line this week, obviously going up against different guys?
Yeah, no question. I think when you look at this offensive line, what they look like tonight is different than what we saw a week ago, and it's a lot different from what we saw 2 weeks ago because Brandon Brooks, now healthy. We saw him play a series a week ago. We did not see Isaac Seumalo in uniform last Thursday night against Pittsburgh. He didn't join the team for individual drills until the weekend. So getting a chance to see him partake in team periods this week against New England was great. Now you're just getting a sense of, all right, this is the offensive line that they want to be able to take the field, right? They're still trying to figure out left tackle and who's definitely going to be the starter there. But all those other spots are who the team has kind of penciled in to be the starters. And so you're starting to see that group kind of come along, and the depth along the way has also had a chance to be able to compete. So it's going to be an interesting battle here, especially when you talk about those backup jobs. 5 starters, but who are going to be the 6th, 7th, 8th? You get into 9th, 10th potential spots on the roster. A lot of bodies kind of fighting for those few spots.
Jordan Mailata, we spent some time talking with him again this week. Lane Johnson even said Jordan Mailata is a freak of nature. Yes. Those were his words exactly. And I don't think he's too far off. But Jordan was asked what is different from Jordan Mailata last year at this time and Jordan Mailata now. And he said, I know how to play this game. He speaks at that podium with confidence. He's very much himself. We know that. He's an authentic guy. But he does seem so much more kind of at peace. He lives in a lot of comfort. Yep. Yes, very confident. But then there's parts of him where, he said last week when I was done playing, he said, I looked at some of the guys. I said, so do I take my pads off now? He's not used to being the guy that just goes in for a few series and then he sits the rest of the preseason game. So he's very much still coming into his own. But the way in which he approaches this game, you can tell, is just with a whole different attitude.
I mean, a year ago at this time, you were still seeing the inconsistencies, and you're still seeing them to a certain extent. But this is a guy that didn't know how to put pads on 3 years ago, right? He was still figuring that part of it out, had never played a down. And so to see how far along he's come is certainly a great sign, continuing to try and get better each and every day. And you know that he brings that mindset. And it's a great room, not just with the offensive linemen, his teammates, and he's always picking the brains of some of those veterans that are in the room, the Jason Kelsey's and the Brandon Brooks, obviously Lane Johnson as well, but Jeff Stoutland, Roy Isfan, the assistant offensive line coach as well. That room, a really, really strong group of developers, guys that are battle tested, that know what it takes to succeed in this league.
Let's look a little bit on the other side of the ball. Jonathan Gannon was happy with his DBs from Thursday night. He said that they tackled really well for their first time tackling. He was very thrilled what he saw out there last Thursday, and he said their drill work was reflected in the game. And I think that's a huge thing that a coach would love to see. What they're doing in practice is being applied in a game situation. He seemed thrilled with how they came out on Monday and Tuesday in joint practices. What have you seen from them? Because they definitely were bringing the energy against the Patriots this week.
A lot of energy, and that's been the case since day one.
Yep.
I mean, I know you were out there for the first day of practice where it was almost kind of jarring how often they were trying to punch the football out and all the white jerseys flowing to the football each and every day, every play, every drill, and that has shown up. We didn't see a lot of balls on the ground from a fumble standpoint the other night against Pittsburgh, but you see just so many jerseys, so many green helmets arriving at the football. The play is over, and you just see more jerseys after more jerseys, and that's going to be the culture. That's the mindset of this defense. And then when you just talk about the tackling, it's the fundamentals. We talked about how that was going to be so important to see because there were no live periods coming into that preseason game last week. What was that going to look like? They did not disappoint.
We also just saw Alex Singleton staying on the defense. Linebacker Alex Singleton. Gannon also had high praise for him, obviously saying he's a super high motor and he processes fast. I think that's huge when you're playing that linebacker position. He knows where he's supposed to be. He processes very quickly. He communicates. He understands his assignment. And then Gannon says he plays free. How important is that for a linebacker to be able to react that quickly and, like Gannon said, play free?
I think when you're talking about a guy like Alex Singleton, he is playing with high-speed internet. It is not dial-up. he sees things fast, and he gets to the football in a hurry. Just that other night, I mean, he only played, what was it, like 20, 25 snaps? Yeah. He had like 7 or 8 tackles. He is just always around the football. But again, that goes back to that culture in that defensive meeting room and what they're trying to build, who they're trying to be. And that's certainly what they're trying. There's another guy there in Eric Wilson who brings a lot of that same energy to the defensive side of the ball.
Another guy that brings energy is Steven Nelson. He was asked how his job is when you have a D-line as dominant as we do here in Philadelphia. And he said, it is the best case scenario. He said, it makes our job a lot easier. When the quarterback is getting pressure up front, he said, our job is made so much simpler. And it's great to see that chemistry being developed. You know, Gannon even emphasized how this defense is team first, defense first. Because there's big names on this defensive side of the ball. Big names, not just here in Philadelphia, but around the NFL. And he said there's no ego. It's team first, us second. And I think that's huge when you're bringing in a new scheme. Jonathan Gannon is trying to kind of bring new energy, fresh air here, and guys are clearly buying in.
I think that the way that those guys are being coached on the defensive side of the football, Eagles fans are going to be excited about this group. You know, it may take a little bit of time. It may not look what the defense looks like in Week 1 against Atlanta. May not be what we see in Week 15, in Week 10. This group is going to take a little bit of time to gel, but I can't wait to see what that finished product. I say finished with quotes. You don't know the finished product. I think they're always going to be trying to get better, but I can't wait to see when this group really starts to gel and become more of a unit. And you know, I mean, the corners, they need the defensive line. The defensive line, they need the corners. When there's a sack, very often, the secondary had a lot to do with that sack. When there's an interception, very likely the defensive front had a lot to do with that interception. So, you know, there's certainly a lot of give and take there. You need both sides of that defense to play at a high level to have success.
I also think this week, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they utilize the tight ends tonight, if we see much of them. But Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert had 2 really, really good days of practice.
Yes. They've been really strong, honestly, throughout camp. Both guys, Zach Ertz, creating separation consistently with lining up against, Devin McCourty and some of the other the talented linebackers from the New England Patriots. Dallas Goedert consistently winning. He's just so athletic. We saw that last week on that long catch and run with Jalen Hurts. So I think you look at these tight ends, what they can do in this Eagles offense. They're going to be a huge safety blanket there for quarterback Jalen Hurts. And if my vision was right here as we're watching the warm-ups, we saw the field goal unit working. It looked like Zach Ertz was working as the holder. There looks like some injuries with the special teams group tonight. So we'll see how that plays out. It looks like Aaron Sipos taking the field goal. So we'll see. So it'll be interesting to watch the special teams here tonight for sure.
Anthony Harris, the guy getting them
down.
pumped tonight. He's new to Philadelphia, but he seems like he's just fitting right in.
He obviously very familiar with the scheme. He worked with Jonathan Gannon and some other members of the Eagles defensive staff in Minnesota. So certainly one of the leaders on that side of the football.
It's very exciting to watch. Now as they head in, they're going to get ready to take the field very soon. What do you think the plan is tonight in terms of what this coaching staff wants to learn about these players that maybe they don't know just yet?
That's a good question. I think when you look at these preseason games now, especially after you had those 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, of those spirited reps, those great joint practices, you just want to see the guys that carry it over. Who are the ones that stood out during the week of practice? Take that from the NovaCare complex, now under the lights on national TV in the preseason game.
All right, well, speaking about under the lights, we're going to head right on over to Lincoln Financial Field, where we are joined by Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. Dave, welcome. We're going to ask you what the past week has been like, how beneficial it is to have the Patriots here for joint practices.
Nick Sirianni considers each joint practice as a game. So the tempo is very high. There's a lot of reps. And he was explaining yesterday in a production meeting that, okay, the first preseason game was last week, and then game number 2 was Monday against the Patriots. Tuesday against the Patriots was game number 3, and so on. So tonight is really the 4th preseason game for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's what they got out of those practices. Very good work.
Dave, I know one player that Coach Sirianni talked about this week during his press conferences was rookie running back Kenny Gainwell. And I'm interested to just kind of get your thoughts. What did you see from him last week against Pittsburgh, and what have you seen from him so far in training camp?
Smooth Kenny G. Really versatile running back, Fran, who is going to move around the formation. They're going to try to get the ball to him in space in the pass game. Extremely natural at catching the football. It was described to me that what makes him so special, not only the soft hands, but great ankle flexion, his ability to get up the field and make defenders miss. And I think as far as running the football, somebody who brings it with just a bit more oomph than maybe we would expect from somebody who's not a particularly large running back.
Well, we're going to listen to some of that interview you did with Smooth Kenny G about his training camp experience so far and what it's been like to be a Philadelphia Eagle.
This is all what I dreamed about, being out here with guys that, I kind of like, seeing on TV, like it's just a dream come true, and just being out there, catching the ball, doing what I love to do, running hard, running fast, man, it just feels good. I feel so comfortable and welcome here, and it's been amazing. I can't explain, the emotion, I have, like just being welcome to a team where people really love you, and like they care about you, and a city too, So I appreciate everyone.
Dave, what else can fans learn from that interview with Kenny Gainwell?
Well, and friend, you've talked about this many times. We've talked about it together as well. Didn't play last year, lost some family members with COVID. So it was all about getting ready really for the NFL and being in great shape for this moment. And also, he's a guy who's a gamer. He loves social media. And if you go to his pages, he might teach you a little bit about the game of football. So make sure you tune into that on the Eagles Insider podcast.
We're going to turn the page over to the game tonight. Dave, what is your storyline that you're looking out for?
My storyline is what everybody else is watching here. The wide receivers, Devontae Smith, can they get the ball to him early? They would like to do that if the coverage allows for it. Also, can Quez Watkins build on the big play he had last week? Can Jalen Reagor build on the couple of really good days of practice he had against the Patriots? All about stacking things on days one after the other. And really for the first time, Reagor has done that this week. He looked excellent against New England at the NovaCare complex.
And then just staying with tonight here, Dave, obviously the win-loss, not super important, but what is it that you're looking to see that could potentially lead to a victory here tonight for the Eagles?
So I'm going to go off script just a little bit. The first part stays on script. Defense got to get off the field, right? You have to get off the field. Didn't do that very well last week. We're not going to see the first team defense, the defensive line tonight. So how do those young defensive linemen rise? And then something fun for everybody to watch. Jake Elliott is not playing in this game. Aaron Sipos, the Eagles punter, via the Aussie Rules football world, is going to handle kickoffs and, if necessary, if they decide to kick extra points and field goals, with Zach Ertz and Nick Mullins doing the holding. So, I had a word with Aaron before the game. He's never tried a field goal or a PAT in his life. He said his main priority is the punt game, but he's going to have fun if they call on him to make some point, to kick that ball through those uprights.
Why not try tonight? Seems like a good time. Well, Dave, thank you so much. We will catch up with you in the post-game show presented by Rico.
All right, guys.
All right, Fran, we just heard from Dave and his storyline he's looking out for tonight. What is your Rico extra point?
Well, for me, it's going to be all about watching this first-team offense and the second-team offense as well. We saw them a week ago really execute at a high level, and I'd just like to see that continue. And for an example of what I mean, to me, I look at this offense under head coach Nick Sirianni. It's all about getting playmakers the ball fast. So you're going to see a lot of quick game. You're going to see lots of quick screens, right? We talked about the running backs in the pass game. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hand fast. And we see there, 1.25 seconds, right? Ball is out fast. Get the ball to the receivers on the run so you can get some of these big plays in the pass game. Right here, this little tunnel screen, that's how Quez Watkins scored in that 79-yard catch and run a week ago against Pittsburgh. You might get these little bubble screens to the receivers. You're trying to find ways to get the receivers the ball on the run, working sideline to sideline, because if you're working vertically, coming back to the line of scrimmage, that's a little bit harder to create yards after catch. Look here, when those guys are working on the run, now they can just put their foot in the ground and get upfield, gain extra yardage. If you're running those hitches and those comebacks, even the fades downfield, those are harder routes to be able to create yards after catch ones. So I think when you look at ultimately this Eagles offense, it's going to be all about trying to find ways to create yards after catch. Very often, Ella, people look at that as a wide receiver stat. No, yards after catch is about, yes, the receiver, but also the quarterback and the coach, the play call, the scheme to try and create those opportunities.
Well, what I'm looking for tonight is going to stay on the offensive side of the ball, and that's challenging the running backs in their pass-catching ability. This has been a huge point of emphasis for Nick Sirianni throughout camp. He's been asked a lot about what he plans to do with the running back room, and we talked to Boston, we talked to Miles, and those are things that they are focusing on in camp. You see Boston at the jugs. In between periods, they're always tossing the ball their way. They want their hands to be ready. So how they do that tonight in a game-like situation, will they throw some screen passes? Will they put some guys out in the backfield? We're going to find out, but that is going to be a huge part of what makes up Nick Sirianni's offense, and I look forward to seeing that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Sirianni said on Monday, right? He said, it's no secret. We want our running backs to catch the football in the passing game. Keep in mind, too, blocking, a big part of playing on third down. You have to be a good pass protector. We saw that from Jordan Howard last week.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to head back to Lincoln Financial Field to hear from Mike and Merrill on their players to watch.
Thank you, Ella. Good to see you tonight. A little bit overcast tonight here at the Link. It's warm, and we are ready for the middle game of the 3-game preseason schedule. And Mr. 5-time All-Pro, who is your player to watch?
So I just think that there's a huge logjam at the safety position. So this young kid out of Clemson, Kayvon Wallace, I think he needs to start to separate himself from the pack. So I want to watch the back end of this defense, and I think they'll be challenged tonight against the New England Patriots. I want to watch how Kayvon Wallace, how he handles what's coming at him tonight.
You know, it's funny that you chose the back end of the defense because so did I. And I'm looking at number 27, the rookie from Texas Tech. His name is Zach.
Yep.
Spelled like it's Zek. Z-E-C-K-H, but it's Zach. Zach McPherson played at Penn State, went to Texas Tech. He is opening eyes. I'm not saying he's going to start against Steve Nelson, and of course on the other side, Darius Slay, but he is making a run at that position. So I think we have a couple of good guys to watch.
Should be a lot of fun.
Okay, Ella, back to you.
All right, Fran, kickoff's inching closer. Final thoughts before we go.
Yeah, I'm just saying, to me, the big thing is let's see the improvement from week 1 to week 2. You know, Dave mentioned a little bit ago that the defense didn't get off the field in the second half. The offense, the turnovers, you want to get over those. So I think ultimately that's the improvement you want to see here in night number 2.
All right, last preseason game here in Philadelphia. That's it for us on the Kickoff Show, presented by Axalta. Meet us back here for the post-game show, presented by Rico, immediately following the game. Enjoy.